Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Slant, powered by Pro Football Focus and brought to you by DraftKings. I'm your usual host, Michael Moore, along with our usual co-host, Russell Clay. Say hello, Russ.
Happy playoffs.
That's right. And you and I were talking and expounding upon the virtues of head-to-head leagues as opposed to straight points leagues. And they're fantastic. I highly recommend them, especially if you had a down year. But again, on the flip side, there's also those teams that had a lot of points that just got busted out. And for those people, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. You can already start looking towards next year or play some DraftKings, which we'll get to later in the show. But before that, Russ, last week we sort of got off easy. Not a whole lot of injuries, but I think this week made up for it for sure. So we'll cover a large portion of the show doing that. And then we will get to some playoff, what I think we will call playoff all-stars so far, and then some playoff duds. Players that did well this week that maybe won your playoff game as opposed to players that maybe cost you a playoff game, which that's never good. We'll check in on our usual tight end man crush, Gary Barnidge. There's a lot of terminology going along there. And we will round out with the usual DraftKings value plays. So, Russ, without further ado, let's just jump into this giant mess. It's really take your pick of who you want to start with, but let's just go in positional order at the top. Andy Dalton, thumb injury, most likely out, at least for the fantasy playoffs, quite possibly the season. And you and I have covered this a couple times, Russ. Quarterbacks there's a lot of parity, I would say, in quarterbacks this year, at least on the fantasy level. So while if you have Andy Dalton, it does sting a lot, I'm sure. I think the bigger effect will probably be felt for AJ Green owners. Is that your feeling?
I would agree initially, and then Tyler Eifert also went out with a concussion. So that's kind of like a double negative. And because Eifert was stealing all the production from AJ Green while Dalton was providing pretty much all the production. So while the passing game might be worse, I think they're going to funnel it to AJ Green a little bit more. So
okay.
I think
you're thinking he could see more targets.
Less effective, but maybe some more targets and easy catches, because who knows how they're going to treat McCarron. I think this might help the running game a little bit. Say Jeremy Hill. I would guess based on sort of how limited McCarron looked that they might lean on the run game.
Well, and my answer for that would be, why wouldn't you? You've got two above-average running backs, I'd say. It's not like you have to lean on one or the other. Mix it up a little bit. And look, for the few times you do have to air it out, you still got AJ Green going down the sideline. You have a couple of decent, I would say, secondary options in the passing game, and Marvin Jones. Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think the biggest beneficiary is going to be the run game. Now, again, It's one of those, live by the sword, die by the sword things. Cincinnati has two very good running backs. You just never know which one they're going to call on each week. So it's kind of dicey. But, yeah, it's just I think it just throws that whole team offensively into flux a little bit,
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're going to have to wait to see. Dalton's definitely out the next few weeks, but we'll have to see with Eifert. If he's in there, man, it's going to be a crapshoot to how the production's going to figure itself out.
Yeah, and just for the record, next week they play the 49ers, so a very fantasy-friendly game, I would say.
Yes.
And then the week after that, they are at the Denver Broncos, not a fantasy-friendly game. So essentially, get your Bengals players out of the way this week.
Right.
After this week, it could be dicey.
So yeah, I mean, AJ Green wasn't looking like a good matchup in Week 16 anyway. So that's
Yeah, that may be the nail in the coffin for that.
Yeah.
Now, to reiterate, we're not saying you should bench AJ Green. Just don't expect the wide receiver one production that you're used to. You may have to settle for wide receiver two. But
right.
All right. So moving on, let's go to some running backs, Russ, because they were not immune from the injury bug either. We'll start off Thomas Rawls, one of the more feel-good stories, I'd say, of the fantasy season, taking over from Marshawn Lynch, and really quite seamlessly, I would say. I mean, he truly turned into a running back one this year. unfortunately broke his ankle pretty early on yesterday. He is definitely out for the year, fantasy and otherwise. It still remains to be seen, Russ, who's going to take over that load. You've got Bryce Brown, who they signed off the street. You've got Juwan Harris, who took the load yesterday, but wasn't exactly the most effective running back. So I don't know, Russ. What's your assessment? Let's look at the running backs in Seattle first. What does this mean for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'd throw some desperate waiver wire money at Bryce Brown, I guess, or Juwan Harris. But I mean, neither. Thomas Rawls proved a lot to everyone this year, and even though they have a good run game, I don't think either of these players is going to come in and sort of
blow the doors off,
right? Or become that sort of borderline running back one that Rawls was, or he was a running back one while he was in there. So I don't see anything like that. Plus, Wilson has been passing the ball so well. I'd imagine they even lean on that more.
I don't know if that was possible, but it may be. Right. Just for reference, Russ, Juwan Harris had 18 carries for 42 yards yesterday for a very nice 2.3 average. By comparison, Thomas Rawls outrushed him despite only 6 carries with 44 yards. So, I think Juwan Harris may not be the answer. So if you're going to pick one, I think I'm with you. I would definitely go with Bryce Brown on that. But at the end of the day, you're right. I think it's the Russell Wilson show, and we're all just spectators at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he threw 5 touchdowns, so obviously they can't really lean on it much more. But I think that just that just pushes them in that direction even more.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, and look, and the even more impressive part, I would say, is they traded for Jimmy Graham before the season, and we thought, oh, Russell Wilson's going to break out. And he is finally breaking out, but without Jimmy Graham. That's the ironic part.
As he went out for the year, it seems like it opened this offense up. And, I mean, Tyler Lockett looks awesome. Doug Baldwin looks awesome. Who knows? And nobody wants to play this Seattle team right now. Their defense is turning it on. Their offense is looking like top 5 in the league. They're primed and ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I would take a lot of shares of Seattle right now. For the rest of the season, Russ, next week at home against the Browns.
Oh, no.
That just makes me laugh. And then for playoff championships, they are playing – they're at home against the Rams. So, yes, I would get any Seattle Seahawk you can if you still can and ride that wave, my friends, because it's going to be good times. So. All right. Now, and as a side note, Russ, since you and I are dynasty connoisseurs, I'm pretty sure Thomas Rawls is still a stronghold, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I think he did enough this year to, even as an undrafted free agent, they're going to bring him back. And he looks like, I mean, who knows what they're going to do with Marshawn Lynch, but yeah, Rawls proved a lot.
That, as most NFL contracts, very little of that Lynch contract is guaranteed. So it's very easy for them to go, see you later. We've got Thomas Rawls at, league minimum, and have a nice day. So, all right, let's get to one other running back, Russ, real quick. TJ Yeldon sprained knee yesterday. I would say in a similar situation offensively than the Seahawks, who we just talked about, where you've got an offense